Hi, I'm Sayad from Sony UK's digital imaging team. What I'd like to do today is to run you through the key features of the a7 III camera and why it plays such an important part in my kit bag. Once we've done that, I will run you through on how to customize all these buttons on this camera to make it most streamlined for your style of photography. Or certainly the way that I've got the camera set up personally for me. Then once we're ready to go, we'll go out to North Queensferry where I've set up a really cool photo shoot overlooking the Forth Rail Bridge. So hopefully the weather will play ball and we're going to capture some incredible photographs. Then once we've done that, we're going to come back into the studio and go through all these photos and see the results that the a7 III produces. But before we do any of that, let's see what this camera is all about. So what you will find on your a7 III is plenty of customizable buttons to truly make the camera your own. There is also a brand new back illuminated full frame sensor with an advanced imaging processor, offering you exceptional wide dynamic range, capturing those highlight as well as the finer shadow details. The camera's high ISO performance is excellent. And with the 5-axis image stabilization system, shooting slower shutter speeds becomes a breeze. And never miss a shot out of focus due to its 693 phase detection autofocus points. And capture the critical moment with its 10 frames per second continuous shooting, as well as the ability to shoot completely silently. And the eye autofocus feature of the a7 III will ensure you have crisp, sharp eyes on your portraits. And with the internal 4K video recording without pixel binning, you will achieve incredibly smooth video quality. And with the improved Z-type battery offering 2.2 times better battery performance. And with the flip screen, you're able to get down nice and low to capture the low angled shots. And with the dual SD card slots, you can make sure to make a duplicate copy of every image you take. Quite impressive, right? Now, let's have a look on how we can customize your a7 III camera. So, the first thing we want to be doing is if you press the menu button, scroll over through to the second camera icon on the top, which should be purple, and then through to page number 8 out of 9 where it says custom key. Now if you OK that, you will notice that you have 3 pages of customizable buttons. Starting off with the control wheel, the custom button 1, 2, 3, 4 on page 1. Moving to page 2, we have the multi-select center button, the center button itself, the left button, the right button, as well as the down button. And the AEL button, or the auto exposure lock button on page number 3, the AF on button, as well as the focus hold button, which you'll find on the side of some of your lenses. Now, to have a look on how I have my personal camera set up, you'll see here on C1, I have set it to focus area because I sometimes want to adjust my focus area very, very quickly depending on the situation that I am or the subject I am shooting. Therefore, having that menu pop up just at press of one button is very, very useful for myself. And very similarly on C2, I've that set to focus mode because not always do I want to shoot autofocus single. Sometimes I would like to use autofocus continuous to track my subjects, or the DMF, digital manual focus, or the manual focus on its own respectively as well. Now, one of the amazing features on the a7 III is the ability to utilize its electronic shutter, which means that the camera will shoot completely silently for you, and rather than having to use a mechanical shutter. Now, there's nothing worse than feeling that you're being obtrusive, especially in a cathedral whilst you're photographing a wedding, because you know that you're going to get a funny look from the minister because you're disturbing him as well as the bride and groom and the rest of the guests. So the ability to shoot completely silently and discreetly using the electronic shutter of the A7 III is amazing, and I personally could not live without it from now on. I've experienced this feature on the mirrorless cameras. Now, that's why I have that programmed to C3, because that is a feature that I will dip in and out of considerably throughout a wedding day. Now, one of the other really cool features that the A7 III does have is a touch screen, which means that you can select your focus point by tapping at the back of the screen. And due to the 693 autofocus points on the A7 III, you can literally be anywhere within the frame that you can move that focus point on, which takes me really nicely to my next point, because we're on page 2, we have the multi-select center button. What that essentially means that I have that set to focus standard, because if I have my focus point on the edge of my frame, depending on the subject or the situation I'm shooting, by pushing that multi-select center button, that means that focus point will just jump back straight to the middle, ready for me for my next shot or my next subject which I'm going to photograph. Then the center button on the camera I have set to eye autofocus, and the left button and the right button I have left as standard, so the drive mode and the ISO respectively, because sometimes I would like to choose it from 1 frame a second all the way to the 10 frames per second on the high plus setting on the A7 III. And the ISO is a bit of a given, because that is something that I adjust so many times throughout the day depending on the environment which I am in. And then also the down button, what I have done is I have programmed that to white balance. And the reason I've done it to there, because on the Sony Alpha mirrorless cameras, certainly is what you see is what you get. And as you adjust your camera settings, let it be exposure or your white balance, you see the live effect taking place as soon as you adjust them. Therefore, it's another setting which I use quite a lot, and I'm quite lazy for post-production. Therefore, I like to try and get things as right in camera as I possibly can. Now, moving on finally to the page number 3, we have the auto exposure lock, or the AEL button. I have personally set that to eye autofocus for myself, for the reason being, when I have the camera up to my eye, I feel it very comfortable just at the edge here that I can press the AEL button and I know that will engage the eye autofocus, and it will ensure crisp, sharp images on my subject's eyes, especially at fast apertures such as f1.4, 1.8 or 2.8 respectively. Then the AF on button I have left as standard, because I am one of those individuals who likes to use a rear button focus, and therefore I've just left it as is. Now, the focus hold button, which you'll find on some of our G and G Master lenses, I have programmed to eye autofocus, because depending on the lens and how it's balanced, I really like the idea of pressing the side button to engage my eye autofocus on my camera. Now guys, that you've set your camera up, I think we're ready to go out to North Queensferry and see how we got on our shoot. Let's go.
Hi guys, it's Sayad from Sony UK here, and I'm in the incredible location of North Queensferry, which is just above Edinburgh, and we're overlooking the incredible Forth Road Bridge, which is connecting the city of Edinburgh to the Kingdom of Fife. But more importantly, I'm going to be talking to you all about the Sony A7 III and how it performs out in the field on a real live fashion shoot, the key features of this camera, and then what we're going to do, we're going to jump back to the studio and I will show you how to fully customize this camera so you can get the best of it, so it can assist you with your photography and your videography. Now, let's get to it. Now, one of the other absolute things that I love about the Sony system cameras, especially the a7 III, is because it is a mirrorless camera, what I see is what I get. So as I adjust my exposure, I can see exactly what the image will look like before I even fire it. So that is a massive, massive advantage, especially if you're out on location or you're a wedding photographer, sports photographer, any kind of photographer really, because it is a massive, massive advantage knowing what your image will look like before you even fire off the shot, which is something that the DSLR technology was never capable of offering us, unfortunately.
Another thing that the a7 III is exceptional at is its high ISO performance. Today we have extremely bright lights, so I'm using the extended ISO range of 64, but at weddings regularly I will shoot above ISO 4000 for extremely clean results.
Okay guys, so one of the things that I really rely on the Sony a7 III is the eye autofocus feature, because it's so incredible, so sticky, and as you can see, as Greta moves around, it's just sticking to her eye at all times. But one of the things that I've done is I've actually programmed my eye autofocus feature to the focus hold button on the side of my lens here. So every time I press it, the focusing just jumps straight to Greta's eyes and allows me to concentrate on composing my image rather than moving the focus point over the eye, especially when I'm shooting at aperture such as f1.4 like now. But once we get back to the studio, I will explain to you how to fully customize the camera and all the buttons to what you would really like them, because the Sony a7 III does have so many customizable buttons and you can really make it to exactly the way that you want it to be and whatever is most streamlined for your style of shooting. Now let me get back to this because the lighting is absolutely incredible and Greta is looking absolutely awesome. I want to capture a few more shots, okay?
One of the features of the a7 III which I always use is its 10 frames per second continuous shooting with full autofocus and auto exposure in between every single frame, making sure that you don't miss that vital moment.
So one of the other things that I really like about the Sony cameras is that the cameras are still quite nice and small, but they fit really good in the hands. And again, having big hands and like an ex-basketball player, the camera really does fit well into my hand and I feel comfortable with it. And that's without the battery grip or anything. So that's just the size of it as it is, which is absolutely incredible. It just feels good, feels comfortable, especially with the G Master lenses on that.
Now, one of my favourite features of the a7 III is the use of its electronic shutter, ensuring that my camera is completely silent when I'm taking photos. I use this all the time throughout wedding photography, especially the likes of the ceremony. However, there's another situation that I can think that this feature could be vital, such as wildlife photography, ensuring that your camera noise does not spook or disturb the animal which you're trying to photograph.
So we've had a costume change. Greta has changed into a lovely green dress which has got pockets. How awesome is that? I've not seen a dress in a long time with pockets, so real cool. But back to the camera, one of the things I want to discuss is the video features of the Alpha 7 III and how awesome they are. So one of the things that the camera does have is internal 4K video recording, which is oversampled 6K there and compressed down to 4K, so it's allowing us to have incredible detail within our footage. And if we actually reduce the quality down to HD, we're able to achieve 100p, so that's super smooth slow motion video, which is only going to enhance our video production. But due to the camera having 693 phase detection autofocus points, one of the features it does have is face detection whilst we are filming. Now that just makes my life a lot easier. And I'll show you a couple of examples on how we're going to do that and how to set that up on your camera once we get back to the studio. But for the time being, I'm going to create some small video footage of Greta using the slow motion 100p on the camera. So let's get to it. Now, one of the features that the A7 III does have, which I've not really touched base on yet, is that the camera actually has dual SD card slots, and that is such an important feature on a pro level camera, especially if you're the likes of a wedding photographer or a news photographer, sports photographer, and you can never go back to that moment in time to capture these images. And as a wedding portrait photographer, it really does give me a lot of confidence knowing that the second card is creating a direct backup of the images. So in the worst case scenario, if you do lose your images, your card becomes corrupt or anything, you do have that comfort of knowing that the second card has got a duplicate of your images, which is really important, and I can't emphasize this. Now, touch wood, I have never ever had a corrupt card for following good procedures such as formatting the card after every single shoot. However, having that comfort and the confidence knowing that I do have a backup is worth it all its weight in gold. And in my opinion, every single camera, pro grade camera, certainly should have the dual UHS 2 card slots. And on the A7 III, one of the things that we can do is we can create one of the card slots to record just raw images, and the other cards record only JPEGs or raw and JPEG, and one card just for video. But once we get back to the studio, I will be able to show you how to set that up on your camera. So one of the things which I'm trying here is to use the leading lines to create a slightly different style of image. I've set the focus area to wide, but I am still being extremely heavily reliant on the eye autofocus feature of the camera, specifically when I'm using my favourite lens, the 85mm f1.4, and usually wide open. But as you can see from the live feed from the camera there, the eye autofocus is being extremely sticky to the subject and tracking the eye which is closest to the camera even as the subject moves around, and it doesn't skip a beat by focusing onto the foliage, causing you to miss potentially a really important shot. It's really sticky on the eye even at f1.4. So guys, one of the other things I wanted to mention to you about that's really cool and unique about the Sony cameras is its imaging edge app. Not only can you control the camera from the likes of your phone, but one of the really useful features I love to do is actually transfer the image from my camera directly to my phone, which in turn I'm just going to send straight away to Greta, because you know what it's like when you're at weddings or on a portrait shoot. The first thing the next day that the bride and groom do is upload a picture somebody's taken on the phone. But why not supply them with a really high quality image you as a professional photographer have captured for them? And I'll show you how easy it is to do that. So I've found the picture that I like on my phone, on my camera rather, and I've switched on the near field communication on my phone. And one of the things I'm going to do straight away is just literally hold my phone against the likes of the camera. The side here you can see that there is the near field communication symbol there, and that's it. That's that image transferring directly to my phone, and that's it copied over. So we've got a really cool picture of Greta, which I am going to send to you, and that's what we've captured today. Absolutely awesome. Thank you. Beautiful. Now, we've had a fantastic shoot today. Greta, thank you so much for your time today. Really do appreciate it. So cheers for hanging out with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we can see, the heart is rolling in. We're losing the bridge again. But one of the things, guys, I really do want to emphasize about is how awesome the sensor on the A7 III is, especially with its 15-stop dynamic range. So why don't we go back to the studio, fire up the laptop and really see what we can do with these files and show you how clean and how sharp the images are. So I'll see you back in the studio. And welcome back to my studio. Now, what an awesome shoot that was with Greta, even though that the conditions weren't quite as what we had planned for. However, let's have a look on some of the images which I've taken on the day and see the dynamic range of the sensor as well as the autofocus system on the A7 III camera. But before we do that, In the earlier segments of the video, I did mention that I will show you on how to customize certain features on your camera, such as how to set the camera for slow motion video recording. Let's have a look on how to do that. Now, to set your camera up for slow motion video recording on the a7 III, there is actually a couple of ways which you are able to do this. The fastest and easiest way of doing it is by rotating your top dial to S&Q mode, which stands for slow and quick motion. And also by ensuring that your records slow and quick settings, which is the second camera icon on the top, and down to S&Q settings is selected at either 100 FPS or alternatively 1 FPS. So 1 frame per second or 100 frames per second in the PAL settings, which is either 4 times slow motion or hyperlapse video, which can actually give you some really cool effects. Now, the other way to do it is by going to the second camera icon on the top and down to file format and ensuring that the camera is set to XAVC SHD. So that is 1080p slow motion video recording. And then that the record settings are set to 100p at 100M, which is 100 frames per second at 100 megabytes per second quality, and 100p and 60M respectively. And once you're set there, just push the record button and you're ready to start recording slow motion video.
And also, to switch on the face detection feature whilst filming, go to the first camera icon on the top, page number 6 out of 14, and to face IAF settings, OK that, and down to face detection frame display. Ensure that that is on, and easy as that.
Now, just a quick recap on how to customize all the buttons on your a7 III camera. The first thing you want to be doing is, if you press the menu button, go through to the second camera icon on the top and through to page number 8 out of 9, where it says custom key. OK that, and then just customize all the buttons to whatever feature or function you would like. And now guys, to the fun part. So let's have a look at some of the images which I've taken on the day of Greta. So I've done a basic edit on a lot of these images. I don't do a lot of heavy editing on my photos, so I'd just like to mention that. Over here we will be able to see the histogram and see what it's doing, and the majority of the images were taken on the Sony 85mm f1.4 G Master lens. So to start off with, let's see how the autofocus system of the camera does perform. And if we have a look at this image in particular, so it's quite a difficult situation. The model is wearing the glasses and the eye is just peeking out from the behind. But if we zoom into 100%, obviously we can see here straight away that the focus is landed right on the retina of the eye, and it's actually missed out the frame of the glasses, which a lot of cameras will pick up, especially with the higher contrast of the image and the dark glass frame literally cutting across of the eye. However, the Sony a7 III has done a fantastic job in focusing past the frame of the sunglasses and right onto the retina of the eye. Absolutely excellent, and this is why I love to use the Sony a7 III camera. Now, looking at a slightly different photo on this one here again, so if we zoom into 100%, again I'd like to mention the lighting conditions were super difficult here. The hair had rolled in, the fog was in the background. As you can see, we've lost the bridge completely, and guys, this was in a matter of 5 minutes. It was absolutely crazy but lovely to experience. But again, if we zoom into 100% in the image there, the autofocus system is doing a fantastic job. You can see it's, even though that the model's facing away, that the eye autofocus has done its job, landed right on the eye there, and even if we zoom out 200%, you can see that the focusing is right on the retina of the eye. Absolutely excellent. Again, this is what the histogram is doing. None of these images are blown out, it's just that the background is extremely bright. And over here, I've actually used my external flash for the photo. And again, you can see that the dynamic range is absolutely excellent on the a7 III. And again, the skin tones and the colours are absolutely lovely. But if we zoom into 100% of the photo again, straight away we can see that my subject is in critical sharpness, shot at 85 f1.4. Plenty of information in the histogram for us to play with if you like to edit your photos. And again, zooming at 200%, yep, that's exactly what we're expecting. It's really, really nice and sharp in the photo there, so absolutely lovely. results once again. And again, if we zoom into this one here, again the skin tones are absolutely lovely. Backlit portrait, again dark black jacket, black and white dress, but the skin tones come out exactly as I would expect them and as I would want them. But again, let's double check the sharpness. And so zooming in to 100%, critical sharpness right on the face, the subject is really sharp, and again at 200% the eyes are critical focus, and that's exactly what we want for portrait photos. If you think about it guys, when you communicate with an individual, what we do is we look at the person's eyes, and if the eyes were soft, then you just don't have that same communication with the image, and there's not much difference with a photograph or a portrait of a person. We just really need to make sure that the eyes are sharp so we can really connect with our subject. But again, difficult lighting situations, backlit, the model's got blonde hair, but all the information is retained there. And again, the metering from the camera done an absolutely excellent job, especially with the dark jacket, white background, blonde model. Skin tones are absolutely lovely. And again, zoom that at 100%, and again, past this strand of hair guys. And again, this is how accurate the focusing system on the A7 III is. Past this strand of hair and zooming at 200%. Yep, so the hair actually cutting the model's eyes is soft, but the eye behind is critical sharpness, and that's at 200%. And as you can see here, this is a part of the image which we're actually working with. And again, lots of information within that histogram for us to play about with. As I say, I don't do a lot of edits on my images, just very basic editing. And again, 85 1.4 and with critical sharpness. Now, if we look at a slightly different photo yet again, over here, again, difficult scenario, difficult shooting conditions, but if we zoom at 100%, yet again, the skin tones are absolutely lovely and gorgeous, and that's exactly what I want. And these were shot all natural light, so no flash or anything, it's just what you're getting out the camera. And again, I can see straight away that my eyes are razor sharp, and zoomed in at 200%, critical sharpness on the eyes, shot again at 85 f1.4, and plenty of information within that histogram. I'm moving slightly down, so to look at again a different picture with different lighting, great dynamic range, lots of detail in the shadows, lots of detail in the highlights, but zoomed in at 100%, wow, I mean that focus is again exceptional. And again, that's 85 f1.4, and zoomed in at 200% here, we've got critical sharpness on the eyes. And again, as a portrait photographer, that's exactly what I am always looking for. As you can see here, even the hair is cutting the eyes razor sharp. Now, just a couple more guys. So again, this one here, we had a bit of movement from Greta there, so she was moving towards me, and again, it just really does show how that camera's autofocus is reliable and flexible, and it will just pick up the eyes. Even again, past the glasses, we can see straight there at 100% zoomed in, past the glasses, it's focused on our subject. And if we zoom in at 200%, the focus is critical on the eyes, and you can see that the sunglasses are just ever so slightly soft, which is exactly what we want. And this is a portion of the image we're working from now at 85 f1.4, and plenty of information within that histogram yet again. And finally over here guys, if we have a look at this one, so yet again the hair is moved in the background, very difficult and tricky lighting situation, but again, the dynamic range of the camera has retained all the information, even in the blonde hair of the model. And if we zoom in at 100%, we can see that the critical sharpness is on the eyes, and yet again, even further at 200%, the lead eye is in complete tic-tac focus for us. And also the skin tones are looking absolutely gorgeous there, and shot once again 85 f1.4 with plenty of information in the histogram to play with. Now to finish it off guys, we'll have a quick look at this image here. So just once again, we'll just have a quick look at the focusing of the photo, see if it's landed on the eyes, and yep, once again it's past the glasses and right onto the lead eye of the image. Absolutely stunning, and just really does show how reliable and how accurate the autofocus of the A7 III camera is, specifically when shooting f1.8 or 1.4, so that image was taken on the 135 1.8 lens. But yet again, really shallow depth of fields, but critical focus on the eyes. And that's what I really want to mention guys, that's what I do rely on the A7 III set of cameras. the focusing system is exceptional, and the best thing is it's consistent. So if we have a look at this image, critical sharpness, if we look at the next image, critical sharpness on the eyes, and even the next one thereafter, so this is a short burst, you can see the eyes are tic-tac focus. So it's not a one-off, this is what you get all the time from the Sony a7 III cameras. Guys, I just want to go over my 3 favourite features of the a7 III and why this camera makes it into my kit bag. To start off with, it has to be the camera's electronic shutter, ensuring that my camera is completely silent whilst I'm photographing weddings and live events. Second of all, it's a 693 phase detection autofocus points and a camera's eye autofocus feature. I am so heavily reliant on the a7 III's eye autofocus, especially when I'm shooting wide open such as f1.4. And finally, it has to be the internal 4K video recording, especially with the ability to shoot at 100p at full HD, increasing my video production value dramatically. Now, I really do hope that you found this video informative and seen what the a7 III can do on a real live shoot. Until next time, I'm Syad from Sony UK, and have a good day.